So we are here whenever you guys are ready. Good morning to everyone from West High.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. My name is Hope Helfrich, and I am in the clinical education department here at Wesley. And we are going to have a great session today, starting and growing your healthcare career. It's our virtual Q&A. We have a really wonderful Wesley leader who's going to be joining us, Corey Forbes.
Good
And
morning.
I also have my partner in crime,
Hello.
Scott Evans.
Yes. I decided to join today.
Yeah. So Corey, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you? Because I know that they are going to want to all be ACNOs when they grow up.
Yes, my name is Corey Forbes. I am one of the ACNOs of Wesley Healthcare. There are three of us. I started my career with Wesley about 11 years ago. I started out as a capstone student through Emporia State University.
We're having a really hard time hearing you guys. I don't know if it's the connection, but it sounds really gravelly. It sounds like there's a not a great connection. I'm not sure what's going on, but or if it's at my end or your end, but can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you okay. Is this any better,
Okay.
Melody?
You guys just sound gravelly.
Huh. I can hear Scott okay, and I can hear you okay.
Yeah, we can hear each other okay as well.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So, yeah, sorry, Melody, you may want to grab your IT department, have them come in while we're doing this. We'll always have the recording available as well. If this just doesn't end up being as clear. All right, go ahead, Corey.
Okay. So I started my career with Wesley about 11 years ago. I started out as a capstone student from Emporia State. I was actually one of the first capstone students that Emporia State got to do at Wesley Healthcare. Thanks for Hope as the education liaison for that, as well as Amy Keith, who was the manager of the unit. And so my career started out as that. I had a job actually before I even graduated college on that same unit that I capstoned. And so from my career from there, I started about 6 months from there as a charge nurse, and then progressed through leadership to now I've been the ACNO of Wesley for about 2 years. And so it's been a wonderful journey. Wesley is my home. I always joke I was born at Wesley and I just came back. And so it's been a wonderful journey for me, a wonderful journey in leadership. This is one of the best hospitals I've ever worked from a quality standpoint, from a support standpoint, the way that we take care of our patients. It's a great team to be a part of.
Corey, let me ask you a question real quick, because Wesley Healthcare made up of Wesley Medical Center on Central and Hillside, and then Wesley Woodlawn up at 29th and Woodlawn. You work over there primarily. Can you just explain the differences between the two hospitals? And because the staff over at Wesley Woodlawn, there are fewer people, and so you get to know more people over there as an ACNO.
I do. So the two campuses are very different, actually. We quite often refer to Hillside as kind of the beast of the hospital. It's the machine. It's our level 1 trauma center. It's also where our pediatric hospital is. And so they do a lot of those works. Woodlawn Hospital has a 12-bed ICU. We have medical surgical units. We have a three suite OR, as well as an ED at our facility. And so we are able to do all the same functions as a hospital that Hillside does. We just don't do some of the same traumas. And so they are a great team here. Because we are a little bit smaller, we're licensed for about 100 beds here at this campus. I get to know my staff very well. I get here at about 6:30 every morning. Because I like to go and round through every unit every morning to see night shift before they go home and day shift as they come on. And so I get to see them all off or on to their shift and make sure that they have everything that they need for their day. It's a very big community feel at this hospital because it's a little bit smaller. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows each other's names, whose kids did what on the weekend, and who's doing what that night. And so it's a little bit different feel here just because we're a lot more close knit because we have the ability of seeing each other every day. So Woodlawn definitely has a little bit different of a feel, but still the same Wesley family.
And Corey, I would agree with that statement. I just feel like Wesley Woodlawn's a little cozier, a little homier, but that's because of the relationships that you have built along the way. I love Maine. It's big, it's active, it's vibrant, but there are different kind of personalities between the two facilities. So I'm glad everybody can find their niche within Wesley Healthcare. I have a question for you, if you're ready. When you're in high school and you're in college, what were you thinking your major was going to be? How did you prepare for that? Did you take certain classes, look at certain focuses for your coursework? Can you share that with us, please?
Yeah. So actually, when I went to school here in Wichita, actually at Southeast High School, and so I graduated from Southeast. And when I was in high school, I was bound and determined I was going to be an FBI agent. I started out pre-law, and I was going to go solve the crimes of the world. And I quickly, as I started through school, realized that nursing called my passion a lot more. I met a nurse while I was in college. It was actually one of my best friends. And she said, I think that this is where you would fall into. And so I started kind of following her. She actually worked at Wesley Medical Center in the ICU. And so I talked to her a little bit, and then that was what changed the trajectory of my college path. But funny enough, those classes helped me out tremendously because I went on to get my nursing degree. But a lot of the classes that I went to get for my pre-law degree was psych and sociology. So I also have a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in sociology, which helps out tremendously in nursing and helping with patients and cares and making sure I'm taking care of the whole person and not just part of it.
Perfect. And that question was given to us by Aisha. And what would you say to be 3 characteristics that you need to be to go into healthcare? What kind of traits?
I would say the top one would probably be compassion. You're going to see a lot of things on your day to day, and people are coming to you in their most vulnerable states. You're going to see them in their most vulnerable. They're sick. They don't want to be in the hospital. So compassion is definitely going to be your first and foremost trait. I think patience is going to be essential in how nurses are built because you have to roll with things consistently. Each day is a little different. Every hour is different in regards to how you're caring for patients. And then multitasking because you're constantly triaging care for your patients, whether that's 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, depending on what units that you're on and what cares you're caring for. So you're constantly having to keep those balls in the air to ensure that all your patients have what they need and you're executing on the cares that the physicians have ordered.
Thank you, Corey. So David asked a question that I think is really interesting because I began to work for Wesley and in my position a couple months before COVID hit, and I've seen a lot of changes in nursing and just how things are done without really having a lot of understanding. But David asked, what has nursing changed over the past 10 years? And if so, how? Because that would basically be the length of your career.
Oh my goodness, nursing has changed so much in 10 years. We have done a lot more incorporation of evidence-based practice in 10 years. And so when I started nursing, it was kind of unheard of that you would do bedside shift reports. So that's when you go into the rooms to do bedside shift report and you change shifts and you're incorporating the patients in your care and some of those things. And so it used to be where nurses did it in cubbies. You didn't do some of the same processes. So over the last 10 years, there's been heavy focus on quality and evidence-based practice and the transition of cares and making sure that people can take care of themselves once they leave your facilities to ensure that they don't come back and that they have the things that they need and the education that they need once they go. And so it's not just like a one-stop shop while they're in the hospital. And so that focus really shifted over the course of the last 10 years to make sure that we're setting up these patients more for success and taking better care of them in our communities.
Thank you, Corey. That's great explanation and a lot of changes, but it sounded like changes for the better.
Yeah, 100%. I think we provide better care now, and I think each generation gets better. Every new generation of nursing gets better.
And we're always looking for that new generation to take over what we've been working on and doing for these many years. So, Corey, can you talk about something that might be a little personal for some people, but in healthcare, we all probably acknowledge that we've gone through so many changes, and this might be kind of an upset to our mental health. How do we care for ourselves? How do we take care of getting ourselves up and ready for work every day? Because we love our jobs, but sometimes there's a couple of pitfalls to it. And how do we manage and keep our mental health steady and stable?
I think that for me, my job is part of what I do. But I think when you identify yourself wholly in what you do, you lose a little portion of yourself. So you have to have those elements, whether that's family, whether that's hobbies, whether those are things that you're doing outside, because we do deal with a lot of heavy things within work. You're going to see different things. You're going to be a part of people's lives that they may have been altered for the rest of your lives, and you kind of take a piece of that with you. And so you have to be able to process that. And so having either resources and people that you can talk to, whether that's having hobbies. Like prior to COVID, when you could run a lot, I ran a 5K or longer every single month for about 2.5 years. And so that got me, I signed up for one as soon as I finished the last one. So that way it would keep me motivated. And so that would always keep me going and doing that. I'm very involved in my family. And so it's doing whatever your passions are outside of work. So then that way you can have that piece of you as well.
Yeah, and with COVID, the impact and the stresses on the nursing staff, any frontline staff, has just been so incredibly intense, because before COVID, you would be treating patients and it would not be very often that you would have a patient who died. But
Correct.
those treating COVID patients, there were times where they would have several people die on the same shift. And so it just wears on somebody. So thank you for talking about those experiences and ideas on how you cope with stress and handle mental health. Corey, let me ask you a question again, because I don't know the complete answer, but you are an ACNO, an Associate Chief Nursing Officer. What exactly do you do, and what career path did you take to get there? What's the best, if someone wants to get into hospital leadership like you, how do you do that? Not that I want to take your job, because I can't, I'm not a nurse.
So what do I do is probably a fairly loaded question. Every day, that's a little different. A lot of what I do is I'm the voice for nursing for my hospital. And so I run all of the nursing operations for Wesley Woodlawn. I have additional responsibilities for some of the hillside operations from nursing as well. But I work really hard to be the voice for my nurses over on this campus. And so my days can be anywhere from having heavy meetings, because we're looking at operations and initiations of different processes and policies and procedures and those kind of things. Or it is that I'm out on the floor with them. I mean, just Wednesday alone, I was out helping them take care of patients, because that's still what fills my cup. and they needed an extra set of hands. And I was here on Saturday because our ED was busting at the seams so we could take care of our community. And so it's making sure that I am that person and that support person for them. The way that I got here was definitely through school and through progressing my career through Wesley. And so when I kind of talked about my my trajectory through Wesley, it was I started out here as a staff nurse. I progressed through a charge nurse, which is now called a clinical nurse coordinator, which is a CNC. It's the assistant manager. And so I worked hand in hand with the manager of our unit for many years. From there, I was involved in a lot of committees and different programs within the hospital. I inundated myself with learning the different ways of Wesley, whether that was the peer review process of the hospital. I was part of the Professional Practice Council. I was a part of many different things so I could learn how Wesley worked and to be a part of progressing this hospital forward in whatever ways that I could. And then from the assistant nurse manager, I went on to the manager aspect, and then was the manager for about 2 years. This is where my path differs a little bit from what a lot of people typically are able to do. Usually from manager to ACNO, you have to be a director. I skipped that step and went from manager to ACNO. And so that was a little different than what most of the trajectories are, because you usually need to be the director of a unit prior to that ACNO spot. But I worked real hard to prove myself and to prove that I could do it. And I made sure that I accomplished my goals in regards to that. Schooling wise, I have my bachelor's degree in nursing. I actually received that from Emporia State. And then I'm currently, I'm 3 classes away from finishing my master's in nursing with a quality focus. And so I will be done with my master's degree here in about, 10 months. And so for an ACNO, you have to have a master's degree.
Corey, what would you say would be some very specific tips that people need to follow if they want to get into healthcare in terms of, do they get to take basket weaving and tiddlywinks, ha ha ha, or what would be the best path, no matter what kind of healthcare they were going to get into?
And let me just add, knowing that the students who are watching now, they are in their school's health academy. So many of them are going to be graduating high school with a CNA, an EMT, a CMA, possibly, maybe phlebotomy. So these guys are already on a trajectory that it sounds like was further along than where you were.
I was going to say, I was like, they're starting leaps and bounds ahead of where I was at. So let's give them a kudos for that, because I was not at the same steps that they were in high school. So that already puts them ahead of where I was. And so a lot of what they'll need to do is talk to their whatever hospital of their interest. Wesley is a wonderful place to work, and the devotion that they put in growing their own, and the different aspects that they do to support, whether that's helping with tuitions or loan forgiveness or those aspects to help. Oh, look, Scott's going to share. Is really beneficial to a lot of our staff. And so we help to grow, just like I started out as a capstone student a long time ago. I have grown to where I am, and that's what Wesley and HCA really does. We have HCA hospitals all across the country. And so being able to come in and get in wherever your niche is, whether that's you love lab, whether that's you love surgery, whether you love case management, there's aspects for everyone within this company. And that's what I love, is you can continually grow and evolve and expand your knowledge and your career within Wesley, within HCA, And they love being able to do that. We have pipelines, we have growth trajectories, we have yearly meetings with your managers where you work through your past to make sure that we can get you where you're supposed to go and grow you to where you need to be. And so that was what I did with my leader when I was a capstone student, and that's how I got to where I am now. And so it was my leaders being able to devote that time to me through that process. And so it's really talking to either recruiters or your leaders within your hospitals or Hope, so they can get you into the right spots to make sure that you get exposed to this. And then you can get a PRN job. You can come in and work part-time. You can work full-time depending on wherever your hours are, whether it's during the summer, whether it's in between different things. And then that gets your foot in the door. And then we really help you get to where you're going after that point in time. But that's the wonderful thing that I love about Wesley and what I have been able to gain personally from within my career to get where I'm at now.
Corey, thank you very much. And we were talking earlier, if the students are looking at the top right corner of the screen, tuition reimbursement up to $5,250 a year. You said that you're using that right now for your master's degree. And so these students right now who are watching, you can take advantage of this. So if you graduate high school, and these are the requirements to work at Wesley, you need to be 18 years old, have basic life support, and be a high school graduate. That's all you need. If you have a CNA, it's not required, but it is a preferred skill set to have. So you can come right out of high school and come and work for us. And then if you are full-time or part-time, you have the ability to get access to that tuition reimbursement. And Corey, you said you were doing your capstone. Hope, you've worked with students before. So either one of you could answer this. Talk about the benefits of working in the hospital, because many people need to have a job to pay for school. So I keep getting sidetracked because you'll be getting paid, but then you'll also be getting an additional $5,000 or $5,200 a year for tuition, which is fantastic. But the advantage of being in the classroom, doing your didactics, but then also not even doing clinicals, because you'll get that as well, but you were working alongside nurses, and hopefully you can work in the area that you're interested in, or at least get there. But talk about that benefit that while you're going to college, learning to be a nurse, you're working as a patient care tech or a unit clerk or a safety attendant or something else. How valuable is that for your overall growth?
So it's super beneficial. So in regards to the tuition reimbursement, I will say Wesley has paid for my master's degree. And when I am done in 10 months, Wesley will have paid for the entire thing outside of, I think, maybe $2,000 of my entire master's degree from the year to year. So that is a phenomenal benefit that I have been able to receive based on working here, which is great. It's another thing that they are investing in me to ensure that I'm the best me that I can be, not only for Wesley, but for my nurses, for my facility, for my campus, for everybody. In regards to working, the good thing is we have programs here that we've set up from Wesley. Is you can be like a nurse extern. So as you're progressing through your career and you want to be a nurse here at Wesley, we can put you in nurse extern roles. And so our nurses, while you're working, while you're doing all these things, we can train you up to Wesley policies, Wesley procedures. We can teach you how to do these things. And the wonderful thing about that is then that prepares you to go and do clinicals. It prepares you for simulation labs while you're in college. It prepares you to go and take your NCLEX later, because you have real life experience that you can garner from those experiences and talk through and look at, and you can say, I've seen that before, I know that, versus going into an NCLEX and being like, I've never been exposed to it outside of a book. And so the good thing about Wesley too is they always talk about real world versus book world, but Wesley really works to make sure that we're following all of the policies and procedures to make sure so you can know that what you're learning is the right way. We teach you the right way. We have simulation labs. We have all of these things to ensure you have all the tools and opportunities to be a success, not only within your career, that we will devote to make sure you have those. So as you grow through your nurse extern, then we hire you and you're slotted right into a nurse rec and a nurse role within whatever whatever unit that you want to be at. And we have people that grow within multiple areas of our hospital. And so you can be a nurse extern in our trauma area or our labor and delivery area or our peds area. And then say you want to go and learn something different, then you can go and be somewhere else and do that. I started out in our neuro unit. I learned trauma for a little while. I learned surgical for a little while. I cross-trained because I wanted to be better and learn more. So I cross-trained into the ED. I constantly wanted to evolve and learn and do more to be a more well-rounded nurse. And the good thing is they will constantly let you be able to do that. You can cross-train and evolve. They want to give you those opportunities. And so that's why we have all of these things to be able to, you have those.
And one of the things I just like to throw out there is that not only do we have nursing students, but we have physical therapy and occupational therapy assistants, physical therapy assistants, respiratory care. We have so many different areas, as well as having medical students and residents. I don't really interact with the medical students or residents, but I do take care of all the other students that come to Wesley, and that's about 800 students per year. So we are rich in opportunity. And just kind of as a side note, our oldest worked here. He was a phlebotomist for about 1.5 years while he waited to get into med school. And he will tell you now to this day that the relationships and the people he met here in the lab department, he makes connections with all the time. And if there's an IV that needs to be started or blood that needs to be drawn, he is Johnny on the spot and can do it himself. So there's a lot of benefits for having kind of grown up within Wesley and having that ability to make those connections. It's so important because that might lead to your next opportunity, your next position, your next department. And one of the things about Capstone, which is a very intense 12 to 16 week hands-on clinical at the very end of your nursing program, you will try out the department you think you want to work in. And it's kind of like a mini job interview. Do you like them? Do they like you? Does it seem like a good fit? And they'll have a position for you. We are very, very, very interested in making sure we have connections. We have people there in the right spot. So we will change. If that doesn't seem like the right fit, Corey, we'll redirect somebody to another area, or they'll say, hey, labor and delivery isn't for me after all, but I think taking care of those little NICU babies would be a cool, best ever job. And we can help make that connection and help you switch over.
And so I was talking to another, one of our managers over our respiratory therapist, and she said that she has a respiratory therapist tech, I believe. And how much schooling is required for that?
I think they have to be at least through their first semester before they can be hired in as a respiratory tech. But that's an awesome, great job because you get to work with the ventilators and you get to learn all kinds of different techniques. You work with a lot of different diagnoses. It's just not necessarily all COVID patients. We have people with asthma. We have children who have RSV. We have specialized respiratory therapists that work in our NICU. That's all they focus on is those little bitty babies that are really struggling. So there's so much diversity, no matter what kind of healthcare you're in. You can go from the young to the old, come back to the middle, and choose and just kind of make a good fit for yourself.
Yeah, and what was cool about that conversation with her, because I always love the presentations that she gives and talking about respiratory therapy, but she said for this student that they have as an RT tech, they're working here while going to school, that when they graduate, they're going to have 3 years seniority over somebody who is just coming to us straight out of college. And so that's going to give them the potential to have a better shift, a shift that they want, that works for them. And they're just going to have that much more experience. And I'm thinking that there are times when I've had good interviews and bad job interviews. But when we get you on, if you start right out of high school as a patient care tech, the intensity of that interview is not going to be as intense as an interview for an RN. But you can come and work for us. And if you're working, let's say at Wesley Woodlawn, and Corey is your ACNO, she'll have known you for 3 years. She'll know the type of person you are, the type of nurse you are or will be. And that will go such a long way when you're taking your NCLEX and you're looking to apply for an actual position at the hospital, because they can say that, oh, Ashley or Alejandra or Melanie or Shauna, they're sitting there and going, yeah, I know all about them, and they're going to be fantastic because I've seen them in this environment. You should see how they work and interact with patients. It's pretty cool to see. Hope, could you talk real quick about the STAR RN program? Because this may be something that people may not know about. I know when I graduated college, I was not in healthcare, I was in TV, and I was just thrown out there. And there's a lot of on-the-job learning. There's stuff you learn at school and you get some good experience, but as Corey mentioned before, it's that real-world experience. Talk about what STAR RN does for those students as they get right out of college.
I'll be glad to, thanks. STAR RN is a HCA product that we are very proud of and very confident that that will increase your skills, your own confidence, and abilities within the new role that you are taking. Most of the time, it's going to be a STAR RN is a critical care nurse or someone who's going into acute care, which is med-surg, but we prefer acute care. We think that's a little bit more reflective. This is a starting point for you when you graduate, if you've done your NCLEX, and you are coming to work. This could be anywhere from 12 or 18, 16 weeks of nothing but getting your hands-on practice with our equipment. You do have some didactic classes because even though you have a degree, we want to make sure that we focus on the kind of patients you're going to be caring for. You generally learn a lot of acute care things in nursing school and a little bit of critical care, but we want to focus on critical care things if that's the job position that you will be taking. So not only do we give you a very deep dive into orientation and really structure it so that you will have more confidence and more abilities when you finish that orientation, then we roll you into an extra part of your development for personal professional development. We have a residency program that will keep you activated, keep you motivated, and for up to your first year or maybe a little bit longer, professional develop topics. We want to talk about ethics. We want to talk about your continuing education because we do value that. We accept associate degree nurses. We accept BSN nurses. We all know that you have a degree, but we want to really give you that extra support so that when you go out there at the end of the orientation, you are extra confident. They did not have this program when I graduated 41 years ago. And my orientation, yes, it was 6 weeks. And I'm a labor and delivery nurse by trade, and I had no background. Everything was contained to 6 weeks. So I was prepared, but I'm a little jealous now of how these nurses are prepared and ready to go. Nursing has changed, and we want to keep up with the times and focus on the needs that you will have as a new RN.
Corey, have you seen a difference in those who go through the STAR RN program and those who don't?
100%. I will say that I'm jealous as well because this program was not around when I graduated school, and I was a part of that whole 6-week. Thankfully, I had my capstone, so I had those hours leading into my orientation as well. But the nurses that are coming out now from the STAR RN program, they know our pumps, they know our policies, they know how to hang fluids. They've got so much more rigorous training from this program that they're hitting the floors running. And so like when we were initially concerned that there was only 4 weeks on the floor afterwards, we're like, how are we going to teach them? Because, you know, at 6 weeks, it was nervous. We have seen such a tremendous camaraderie between these STAR RNs. Like they're coming in together for their classes. They're hitting the floors together. So they have buddies, they have friends, they have people that they're going into their residency program with as well. And so like I've seen such a tremendous increase in skill sets and knowledge from these nurses from the STAR RN program that I'm proud of HCA for doing this and proud of our facility for taking this on and doing such a great job with it.
We also have a sim lab that we use extensively within the STAR RN program, and that is where we have in the world of OB, postpartum hemorrhage drills. What do you do? How fast do you do it? What do you expect to be done? If it's not being done, do you have the opportunity to ask that physician, should we be giving that Cytotec? And really having that collegial activity makes a difference when you know and are confident in what should happen. You don't see it happening and you have a voice, and we want you to speak up. So we have about $1 million investment in our sim lab. So we have mannequins that birth babies, we have mannequins that heart stops, we need to have mannequins that we can intubate. So we have such a rich environment for learning as well, in addition to our little skills lab where we practice IV starts and putting in catheters in various places. So we have a lot to offer.
May I ask a question about that STAR RN program? Is that every single new graduate that goes into that program, or is that a choice that a new graduate makes?
It is part of the expectation that you will be in the STAR RN program. We have them for NICU, labor and delivery, acute care, ED, the OR, critical care. Corey, am I missing anything?
I don't think so. I think that those are it. And yeah, it's part of everybody's orientation, and they are automatically enrolled in those programs. And so there's classes that form based on hire dates, and then everybody is put together, and then they work through those courses together. And it's fantastic. But yeah, it's part of everyone's orientation.
And Melody, thank you for asking that question. This is a great chance to take a break from the questions that have been submitted to seeing if Melody or Hannah, any of you in your classes, any other questions that your students have at this point? Okay, so while if you are gathering some of those, we'll hold off on those for a second. Corey, several students have asked about typical work hours for a nurse. What's your schedule? Do you ever get bored on your job? So can you talk about, this is not, I mean, you may have more of a 9-to-5 job now, maybe as leadership. No, not even close. All right, there you go. So healthcare really, it's not a 9-to-5 job 5 days a week. So if you could talk about, I don't know if you can say a typical nurse schedule because they can vary, but the shifts usually are about the same, right?
Yeah. So for the staff nurses, they typically work 3/12s. So that's part of what a full-time requirement is for them. So they work 3 12-hour shifts. I will say that you clock in basically it's 7 to 7 based on whatever it is, whether that's 7P or 7A. I will say that you will not necessarily be leaving at the 7 mark at the end of the shift, because you have to hand off that load of patients that you have been taking excellent care of all day long to the next nurse. And so that report can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on whatever transpired throughout your day or however many people you took on in addition. And so, and then sometimes you have some additional things that you have to chart or do afterwards. But typically it's 3 12-hour shifts, give or take some time on the back end of that, depending on what else you have to finish. And the same thing for our PCTs. They work 12-hour shifts as well. Different positions within the hospital have some 8-hour shifts. I think RT works 8 hours. And some of those other ones, surgical services have different hours or call hours depending on what those are. But the nursing side of things typically work 12. My hours are a give and take. My day is never the same by any means. Like I said, I usually get here about 6:30 in the morning, and I right now usually leave about 5. That's by personal choice, not by what normal hours I think of what typical administration is, but that's by personal choice because I fill my cup by seeing my staff. And so I know when I'm going to have a long day of meetings and I may not be able to get out and about to see everybody, I want to be able to see them in the morning, or to be able to see them before their day is. What resources do you need? What help can I provide you? What does the day look like? How many people are we needing to place based on surgical procedures or those things? And so I'm much more hands-on when it comes to some of those things. And so that's part of my things. And so I usually try and get out again at about mid-afternoon. And then it's just a hodgepodge of whatever is required of me during the day. It could be I have some meetings, or it could be that I'm going out to talk to people, or I'm going to a school, or I'm going to these things. But it's always to be a support to the hospital or my staff or things like those. And so I'm part of a bigger team from those perspectives. But I will say that no day ever really looks the same necessarily in my world. And I will say on the floor, when I was a nurse, my days never looked the same. You know that basically you're going to administer meds at 9, 12, 3, and 5, but those are about your only stable things within your day. Other than that, it is a give and take based on whatever thing is going to happen, or whatever patient need or procedure is going to happen within that day. And so that's kind of that give and take and the fluidity that you have to have as a nurse. And it works very well as a leader as well, because you just have to be able to roll with it. You're constantly being fluid with your day, because there's always going to be something that happens. There's always going to be something that comes up, and you just roll with it and you go with it. And so those are the typical hours. The staff work a rotating weekend as part of their requirements, but everybody just kind of works together from that perspective.
Corey, before I ask you a follow-up question, Melody or Hannah, do either of your students or either of you have any questions?
I have one other question that one of my students asked about. Have you had any experience with anyone with dyslexia going into nursing, or how dyslexia might affect their ability to be a nurse?
Yes, I actually have a staff nurse right now that has dyslexia out on one of my units. We have been able to support her through that. And she is a fantastic, successful nurse. There is no hindrances to her abilities with that. And so it's a knowledge thing. And so I would 100% say that is doable and effective throughout the profession, as long as that person is willing to work with it and be aware of what the opportunities of her are. We can work through that on that end, but I've never seen an issue from that on this perspective.
Corey, do you think that nurse would be willing, if Melody's student wanted to talk to somebody, do you think that nurse would be willing to talk with that student just to explain their experiences and maybe give some advice?
Yeah, I can ask her for sure.
Yeah, so Melody, if that's something that student is interested in, please let us know and we'll see if we can connect them.
Sounds great. I think she would be interested. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that opportunity. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. She is great. She also has a shunt due to a previous trauma. So there's lots of things that she has overcome within her life to be a nurse. And so she is a fantastic depiction of what you can do to overcome different things and different obstacles and still be an absolute success within the field.
Hannah, any questions from your side?
I think that's all the questions my students have. I'm not sure about Hannah.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't have any questions. We thought you guys
Okay.
covered a lot of great stuff, though. They were excited to hear about tuition reimbursement.
Yeah, and guys, that's so Melody, Hannah, what I'll do is I will send out this this document that we showed earlier. There it is, the camera's up here. I'll send this out to you so that you guys can print it and give it to your students. You can take it home, talk to your mom, dad. And let me say this, because I've run some of the few numbers, that we have a really, really cool retirement program, a 401k match program that is something I've never heard of. So I've worked for other companies before, and if I'm saving 6% of my income, there are companies that'll say, we'll match 0.5% up to 3%. So if I put in 3%, they give 1.5, or they're, and so it varies. Well, HCA, Wesley, we start at 3%, which is pretty common, but then it goes all the way up to 9% match. So if I save 9% of my income, so if you're making I don't know, $50,000 a year at 9%, you're making $4,500, then the company matches not, so you're making $9,000, saving $9,000 towards retirement. So if you come and work for us right out of high school and you stay with us for your entire career, and that ends up being like 40 plus years, you will be a millionaire if you start saving at 6% and the company just matches beginning at 3%. At 25 years is when they do that 9% match. So if you want to be a millionaire, the trick is longevity and saving towards retirement. So that's what this can do for you. We also have the QR code on here for the open jobs right now. So you can go and look on that, just pull out your phone and do the QR code, and you can see what are the open jobs and look at the requirements, talk with your teacher. You can reach out to me or Hope, and you can get more information about those just to make sure that you are on the right path. Before we go, Corey, one of the follow-up questions I had is right now you said you get in at 6:30, sometimes leave at 5. Shifts are normally 3/12s. So that means you're not working 4 days of the week. Those who are on those 3/12s, can you just talk a little bit about work-life balance and the opportunity for overtime if that's what somebody wants, if they're trying to aggressively save for a car or a house or whatever?
Absolutely. So we have lots of opportunities, and our staff often pick up additional shifts, whether, especially about this time of year, it's Christmas. And so a lot of staff nurses are working additional shifts to save up for Christmas presents for kids or themselves or different family members. And so anything above their complement and above that 40-hour mark, they get overtime on. And so that's time and a half that they're receiving on their base pay. And so we have a lot of nurses that, because they only work 3 days a week, even if they just work one additional shift and they still have 3 days off, they're making an additional overtime shift just based on that extra one. And so we have a lot of people that will schedule their shifts so that way they work a lot of them in a row. Like when I was on the floor and working my 3/12s, I worked 3/12s, got 1 day off, did 3/12s again, and basically I had a week off. So I worked a week solid, but got a full week off. And so when you're like training to plan vacations, you don't have to worry about PTO because you already have a week off every other time. And so when you're planning different things and different things with your family, it's a lot more feasible to do that because you have so many days off. And the staff here, everybody works together to cover shifts if you need different things off. Managers approve PTO. But the good thing is no matter what you want to do with your working, not working, or things like that, needing time off or working additional, you can accomplish any of that. And the good thing is if you're wanting to work more, that's it's nice to put a little extra dollars in your pocket, especially when you can still have more than a weekend off by just working one more additional shift.
Yeah, that's very true. We have a daughter who works at Wesley and is in an intensive care unit, and she was doing the 3 on, 1 off, 3 on. Now she's decided that maybe she needs another couple of days off, but she'll pick up a shift very readily. And yeah, she's paying off a car pretty quick. So it's very good for her and me, the mom.
Well, perfect.
I think
Yeah.
you guys kind of already covered this question, but just to clarify, the question is for these guys that obviously next year they're going to be freshmen in college, and they're going to be probably scheduling those courses in, April, May, right? And then they're thinking about obviously starting for work at some place like Wesley here. And the question is like, how do they end up deciding what hours, what classes they should take at the college, like as far as days, times, things like that? And then how will that kind of that school schedule work with work schedule? Because I know science and obviously working at the same time can be some fun.
So I can talk to that. So when I was enrolling in school, and especially once I flipped my major to nursing, I spoke with the counselors at the school. And so the counselors are really able to help balance that for you and with you. And so when you finally figure out your schedule, a lot of times they try and schedule those together on like days because they're health profession classes. And so a lot of those are together on those. And then you can either work weekends or you can work evenings or work split shifts to be able to accomplish that. And so that's really where Wesley comes into play, because you can be PRN and be able to still get your hours, still get in the door. And being PRN also opens you up for scholarships from Wesley by applying for those scholarships to be able to get additional money on top of your tuition reimbursements, on top of those different things, to get a scholarship between the campus. And so when you're doing those, then they can line up your classes to still be able to give you time to study and to be able to be proficient in your studies, but then still have time off to be able to make an income to be able to afford all the other things. And then Wesley will help you with the tuition reimbursement or the loan forgiveness, because they also provide that. Or there's a scholarship opportunity that you can apply for. I just was a part of 16 different interviews over the course of the last 2 weeks for our nursing scholarships for our students who are in their last year and a half of nursing school, to get scholarships to finish off those. And so there's so many opportunities to help as well, from Wesley, to be able to help achieve that balance of working and still providing an income.
Yeah, and Corey, let me just add a couple things to that. So I've spoken with directors before, some in our service line directors, saying that, yeah, if we have a student that's going to school, we will work with them on their schedule to make sure it works. Because as Corey said, if you're working 3/12s and you work 1 or 2 weekend days, then that's enough. So the tuition reimbursement is eligible. You are eligible if you're working full-time or part-time. I believe if you're working PRN, so basically as needed, you are not eligible for the tuition reimbursement. And then for the student loan assistance program, if you're working full-time, it's $100 per month. If you're working part-time, it's $50 per month. So make sure that you are speaking with if you are able to get a job at Wesley, ideally what I would do if I were you is come maybe March, April, May, begin identifying if there's a job at Wesley you want to go for and begin to apply for it. Talk with our recruiters, and so that when you graduate, you can start your job. And then you'll have 3 months as you're figuring out your schedule that you can work with the college and you can work with your manager directly to make sure that you have a schedule that works so that you are eligible for the tuition reimbursement and you are still able to work and get your schooling done. Does that help, Hannah?
That helps a ton. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked it. All right. I think we're good,
I
right?
think we're done. So I just want to give you guys a big shout out. Thank you for participating. We have really enjoyed it. Hopefully you found some questions that were beneficial. If there is something that comes up, you have a thought tomorrow, please email your instructor or somebody who will send it directly to Scott. He's our go-to guy for this. And we will get that answer for you. We don't want to leave you out there hanging. And you also have an evaluation that I want you guys to complete. It's pretty simple, but it's going to be very important for us to get your feedback about today, the session, those kinds of things. So if you would, please give us your instant feedback, your well thought out feedback, good or bad. We want to do that, and we will share that with Corey. And that way we know where we all are on this journey. And we're really glad you guys are making healthcare a career. It is quite the place you want to be.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate this time. And also, Scott, since I have my other class that would like to listen to this, can you send me whatever the link is so that my first block class can also benefit?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I will send this link out as soon as I get it. It will be here maybe in an hour or so.
Thank
I
you.
will send that link out along with the evaluation, along with this investing in your future document.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So please, yeah, and kids, make sure you put on there if you want to learn about a different healthcare career or pathway or service line, please let us know, and that's how we come up with these next topics. So
Thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.